The blast door screamed as it buckled inward, red-hot metal peeling away like flesh from bone. Kane pressed his back against the tactical console, feeling the vibrations of the Scarex assault ships, pounding the Academy's outer shields through the deck plating beneath his boots. Emergency lighting bathed the command center in crimson shadows that danced across alien faces frozen in calculated terror. 37 seconds until total shield failure. Kane's mind processed the data streaming across holographic displays with the cold precision that had earned him a place at Thorndale Command Academy, the most prestigious military institution in 3 galactic sectors, where alien cadets studied human battle tactics as amusing theoretical exercises, where no rational species would choose to fight against impossible odds. The tactical holotable pulsed with scarlet threat indicators, 18 Scarex dreadnoughts in high orbit, 200 fighter craft swarming like metallic hornets, ground assault mechs already breaching the Academy's perimeter. Every simulation running in the background calculated the same result: complete annihilation within 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Sithara's blue skin rippled with luminescent patterns that pulsed like liquid starlight across her elegant, athletic form. The Vexhai female stood rigid beside her workstation, her slender but powerfully muscled frame moving with predatory grace as her 4 arms danced in precise geometric sequences across the defensive grid interface. Yellow eyes blazed with elf-like intensity in features carved from celestial marble. Beautiful, brilliant, perfectly logical in every tactical decision she had ever made, and beneath that ethereal exterior coiled strength that could tear through steel. Kane knew she was calculating surrender terms. Vorthal's slender but powerfully built frame hunched over the communications array with predatory intensity, her black skin seeming to drink the emergency lighting, while blue eyes blazed like stellar fire from shadowy features. Lightning-patterned luminescence rippled across lean, corded muscle in waves of electric fury as she processed casualty reports. Every line of her athletic form spoke of controlled violence waiting to explode. 2,000 alien cadets, 300 instructors, all of them about to die because some theoretical exercise had become horrifyingly real. Kexran stood motionless at the strategic overview console, her white skin marked with intricate black patterns that traced geometric designs across features sculpted from pale perfection. Short horns curved from her temples like ancient crowns, giving her slender but athletically powerful form an almost demonic elegance. Beneath that deceptively lean frame, corded muscle shifted like liquid steel as electromagnetic patterns pulsed beneath alabaster flesh. The Velcorin species processed battlefield mathematics faster than most starship computers, but it was the controlled strength in her movements that truly commanded attention. Her conclusions would be flawless. They would also be wrong. Kane felt the familiar burn in his chest. The stubborn fire that had gotten him kicked out of 3 different preparatory academies on Earth. The relentless fury that evolution had carved into human DNA during 10,000 years of surviving on a world that wanted everything dead. He pushed away from the console and stalked toward the tactical display. 29 seconds until shield collapse. The Scarex were already launching boarding torpedoes. Kane, what are you calculating? Sithara's mental voice whispered through the neural link, her thoughts flowing like liquid starlight across his consciousness. The Academy's advanced cadets could share tactical data directly through quantum-entangled implants. It was supposed to create perfect coordination between allied species. Instead, it let her feel the absolute chaos of human combat thinking. This cannot be solved through conventional tactics, Kane. Vorthal's thoughts rumbled with the deep bass undertones of her species' communication. We must initiate evacuation protocols immediately. Kexran's mental presence felt like cold mathematics given form. I have analyzed 47,000 tactical permutations. Victory probability remains 0.0003%. We should surrender while terms remain negotiable. Cain reached the hollow table and spread his hands across its surface. The Academy's entire defensive network flowed through his fingertips. Orbital platforms, ground-based particle cannons, shielded bunkers, emergency protocols, all of it designed by logical minds that had never learned to fight dirty. 22 seconds. He closed his eyes and let his mind drift back to the archives he'd studied during his first year at Thorndale. Human military history, the battles that every alien professor taught as examples of impossible stupidity. Thermopylae, Rorke's Drift, the Alamo, Stalingrad, every battle where humans had faced annihilation and chosen to fight anyway. Cain's fingers began moving across the tactical interface. Cain, your bioreadings indicate extreme stress responses. Sithara's concern rippled through the link like warm honey. Perhaps you should step away from the controls until rational thought returns. He almost laughed. Rational thought was exactly what would get them all killed. The Scareks expected surrender. Their entire tactical doctrine relied on overwhelming force, creating logical capitulation. They had studied Thorndale's defensive capabilities for months before this assault. They knew exactly how much firepower it would take to break every system. They had calculated for alien thinking. They had not calculated for human spite. Cain's hands danced across the holographic controls with increasing speed. Emergency power redistribution. Shield harmonic frequency shifts. Defensive platform targeting solutions. What are you doing? Vorthal's mental voice carried undertones of genuine alarm. Something stupid, Cain replied. 18 seconds until shield failure. The blast door began to glow white-hot as Scarek's cutting torches sliced through reinforced tritanium. Cain rerouted power from the Academy's gravitational generators to the defensive grid. The artificial gravity fluctuated, making his stomach lurch as they all briefly floated in the suddenly weightless command center. Emergency systems kicked in, restoring normal gravity with a bone-jarring thud. But those 3 seconds of redirected power had bought them something the Scareks hadn't expected. Time. The orbital defense platforms had always been programmed for maximum efficiency. Measured shots, conservative energy expenditure, tactical sustainability. Human military doctrine had a different philosophy about sustainability. Cain overrode every safety protocol in the Academy's arsenal. He pushed the orbital platforms beyond their design limits, forcing them to discharge their entire power cores in concentrated bursts. The platforms would burn out after 90 seconds of operation, but for 90 seconds, Thorndale Command Academy would have the firepower of a battle cruiser. Cain, this will destroy our defensive capabilities entirely. Kexron's thoughts carried the rigid mathematical certainty of his species. After the platforms burn out, we will have no protection whatsoever. That's the point, Cain replied, his fingers still flying across the controls. 14 seconds until shield collapse. He activated the Academy's emergency protocols and began broadcasting evacuation orders to every section of the complex. But instead of directing cadets to the escape pods, he routed them to the underground training facilities, the bunkers designed to simulate siege warfare. The bunkers that could be sealed and defended even if the main academy fell. The bunkers that the Scareks had probably forgotten about because no rational defender would trap themselves underground when escape routes were available. Cain felt Sithara's mind touch his through the neural link. Her consciousness was a flowing maze of logical pathways and calculated probabilities, as elegant and graceful as her blue-skinned form. She was trying to understand his tactical reasoning. Instead, she found something that made her recoil in shock. You intend to fight them even after the defenses fail. Yes, you intend to fight them with training weapons and improvised fortifications. Yes, you intend to fight them even though mathematical analysis proves we cannot win. Kane looked up from the tactical display and met her blazing yellow eyes across the command center. Her blue-skinned features reflected the crimson emergency, lighting like an ethereal goddess of war, luminescent patterns flowing across her flesh in waves of stellar beauty. Especially because we can't win. 10 seconds until shield collapse. The orbital platforms began their supercharged bombardment sequence. Through the reinforced viewports, Kane could see brilliant lances of energy tearing through the Scarex's fighter formations. 3 dreadnoughts exploded in silent flowers of plasma and debris. The remaining Scarex ships scattered in confusion. Their tactical computers had not calculated for this level of defensive firepower from a training academy. They had expected logical, measured resistance. They had received concentrated violence that burned through space like miniature stars. 7 seconds. Kane activated the final protocol in his improvised defense plan. The Academy's training simulator network contained detailed tactical scenarios from every major military engagement in galactic history, including several human conflicts that alien professors used as examples of successful defensive strategies. Kane had spent 3 years studying those scenarios, learning how outnumbered defenders had held impossible positions through stubborn refusal to accept defeat. He uploaded those tactical patterns to every cadet's neural implant, not as theoretical exercises, as operational instructions. 4 seconds until shield collapse. The blast door exploded inward in a shower of molten metal and superheated gas. Scarex shock troopers poured through the breach, their powered armor gleaming like black chrome in the emergency lighting. Kane stood up from the tactical console and drew his training sidearm. The weapon held non-lethal training charges designed for academy exercises. Against armored assault troops, it would be completely useless. He aimed it anyway. Sithara rose beside him like an ascending constellation, her slender but powerfully muscled form moving with deadly grace as her 4 arms activated training weapons in fluid combat sequences. Kexran stepped forward, her horned silhouette radiating controlled menace, despite her species' normally peaceful demeanor. Black patterns writhing across white skin like living tattoos that mapped the muscle beneath. Vorthal's blue eyes blazed as she prepared for combat, lightning patterns crackling across her lean, athletic frame, where every line spoke of explosive power waiting to be unleashed. The Academy's shields collapsed with a harmonic whine that echoed through the complex like a death song. Kane smiled. Now the real fight begins. The first Scarex trooper raised his particle rifle, targeting Kane with methodical precision. The alien's tactical computer calculated optimal shot placement for maximum psychological impact on the defending force. Kane pulled the trigger on his training weapon and dove behind the hollow table as return fire seared the air where his head had been. The training charge struck the Scarex trooper's armor and discharged harmlessly in a shower of sparks. But it also activated the electromagnetic pulse Kane had rigged into the training charge circuitry. The trooper's powered armor locked up for exactly 2.7 seconds. Long enough for Vorthal to cross the distance between them like a shadow given form, her deceptively lean frame exploding into motion as she drove steel-hard fists through the armor's joint seals with devastating precision. The Crocthan warrior had just learned that humans sometimes fought with tactics that made no logical sense. Until they worked, more Scarex troops poured through the breach. Kane rolled across the deck, grabbing emergency supplies from storage compartments, as particle beams turned the air around him into superheated plasma. His hands found a chemical fire suppressant canister, standard academy safety equipment. Also an improvised smoke grenade when the containment seal was deliberately damaged. Kane smashed the canister against the deck plating and hurled it toward the breach. Thick white foam erupted across the command center, cutting visibility to zero. The Scarex had advanced targeting systems that could track heat signatures through smoke. They had not calculated for the thermal chaos created by foam designed to absorb energy from plasma fires. Sithara's blue-skinned form moved through the artificial fog like a living constellation made flesh. Her athletic frame flowing with deadly grace as luminescent patterns, strobed in tactical sequences that confused enemy targeting systems. Every movement revealed the coiled strength beneath that ethereal exterior, a warrior goddess carved from starlight and steel. She had adapted Kane's improvised strategy to her own species' natural abilities. She was learning to fight dirty. Kane felt the neural link carrying fragments of thought between all four cadets. Mathematical precision blending with tactical intuition. Logical analysis merged with stubborn human refusal to accept defeat. The Scarex had expected to face a military academy following standard defensive protocols. Instead, they were fighting something new, something that combined the best tactical thinking of 4 different species into a hybrid combat doctrine that existed nowhere in their databases. Something that calculated victory not in terms of resource preservation or casualty minimization, but in terms of making the enemy pay so dearly for each meter of ground that conquest became more costly than retreat. Kane grabbed Kexron's arm and pulled the Velcorin toward the emergency access shaft that led to the underground bunkers. Time to go. But we haven't secured the command center, Kexron protested through the neural link. Kane grinned as he opened the access hatch. We're not trying to secure it. We're trying to make them wish they'd never found it. Behind them, the Academy's orbital platforms finally burned out in brilliant cascades of overloaded energy. The Scarex dreadnoughts moved into bombardment positions, preparing to reduce Thorndale Command Academy to radioactive ash. Kane dropped through the access shaft into the underground maze of training bunkers and defensive positions that honeycombed the Academy's foundations. Above them, 2,000 alien cadets were learning what human instructors had tried to teach them for 3 years through theory and simulation. Sometimes the only way to win was to be too stubborn to die. The real lesson was just beginning.